Never thought I would say this, but I found a great hotel to stay in New York City. Who would have thought? The price of the property can be scary, but if you have the right credit card strategy, you can actually make it work. Especially if your way of using points focuses on maximizing experiences. Today we'll review the Park Hyatt in New York using a 5-point framework. It is the same 5-point framework that we used for the banyan tree in Lanco, and if you haven't checked out that video, I'll link it up there. We'll review the amenities, the room, the food, the hospitality, and the location of the property. We'll rate each of these parameters on a scale of 5 and then come to an average score for the property on a scale of 5. If that sounds interesting to you, hit the like and subscribe button. And if you're new here, my name is Abhi. This is Credit Debit with Abhi, and like we do in all of our videos, without further ado, let's dive in. Let's start with the first parameter, which is the amenities of the property. This property is located on West 57th Street between 6th and 7th Avenue. As you enter the property, you're greeted by this large, massive door that opens up automatically. But as you enter the hotel, you realize the lobby is not located on the ground floor. After entering the hotel, you take a left, you see 3 elevators in front of you, and you take the elevator to L. You also come across a mezzanine floor, which I believe is their event space. Once you get out of the elevator at the lobby, you're greeted by the only restaurant at the property where they serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I had a guest of honor certificate that I used for my stay here because we were going to be staying here for 4 nights. That provided us with a 1-level upgrade on our room, and we got a room on the 20th floor. And it also gave us access to free breakfast for 2 people. If you do not know what the guest of honor certificate is, when you stay at Hyatt hotels for a certain number of days, at certain thresholds, you get a choice of benefits. One of the benefits at 40 nights is the guest of honor certificate, which allows you to have globalist access during your stay. Coming back to the amenities of the hotel, the rest of the lobby had display units for luxury jewelry items. This included watches, rings, necklaces, and very expensive bags. And if you took the elevator all the way up to the 25th floor, this is where you saw the swimming pool as well as the gym. The gym was pretty spacious for where this hotel is located. You had a partial view of Central Park. You had pretty much every single equipment that you can think of. You also had this mirror equipment, which was later on bought by Lululemon and has since been discontinued, I think. But you could play live classes here and continue your workout. The pool area was also a decent size. It had a steam room, a jacuzzi, a decent sized pool, and enough seating within the area. We visited in August, which is peak time at the property, and we never found this place too crowded. Knowing that you're in the middle of Manhattan, the amenities of this property get a 5 out of 5. Let's move on to the next parameter, which is the room. As soon as you enter the hotel room, you get the feeling that this room is going to be larger than any other property in New York City. Once you walk past the narrow alley that leads into the room, you see a small storage area which has the lockbox, 2 wardrobes, and as you walk further into the room, you're able to see a king bed and plenty of outlets right next to your bed where you can charge your phone if you wanted to at night. And if you walked over to the window, you can view some of the tallest buildings that New York has to offer. There's a small seating area right next to the window at the corner of the room, and then you have a small workstation, and then you enter the bathroom. It's a pretty spacious bathroom, again, considering you're in New York City, with a double sink and a separate area for shower as well as the toilet. You also have a bathtub right opposite where the sink is, and that's also a decent size. The one thing I did want to call out, and is probably less talked about when reviewing hotels, is the shower pressure. The shower pressure was exemplary. All in all, in my opinion, the room gets a 5 out of 5. Which then brings us to the food of the property. The first night that we arrived here, we decided to order in some room service because it was pretty late by the time we got there. So we ordered a pasta and a burger, and our expectations were very low. However, to our surprise, the food was warm when it arrived, and this was at 11:30 at night. And the food actually was pretty delicious. Maybe we were just very hungry, but we also ordered a dessert on a different night, and even that was fantastic. Like I mentioned earlier, I applied the guest of honor certificate, so we had globalist status during our stay here, and that gave us access to breakfast. The menu had 2 basic sections. The first section had plate-based options, the second section had a la carte options. No matter what you chose, you can add a coffee and a juice to your order. The things that we tried from the a la carte menu were pretty good. I specifically want to call out the vegan Bircher muesli, which was delicious, but the plate options weren't that great if I'm being honest with you. And the fact that there was only one restaurant at the property kind of limited your option. So the food at the property, in my opinion, gets a 4 out of 5. Which then brings us to hospitality at the property. And this is where I think the hotel really shone through. We visited the hotel with our pet, and there was so much attention to detail. Every time we ordered room service, the room service would arrive in 30 minutes. Since we were in the room with our pet, we would call housekeeping to come clean up the room when we would take him for a walk, and by the time we would come back, the room would be done up. Not only that, every single individual paid attention that we had a pet with us. I had to work from the hotel one of the days, and because I tend to drink a lot of water, I just called them and said, hey, I'm going to be working from the hotel room. Can you send me a few bottles of water? And they sent me a bulk load of water that was enough to last me that day and the next day. And there were small elements throughout the day that made it even more special. Like when we would walk out with Gigi, everyone would look at him, say hi to him, would help us in getting the elevator door when they didn't need to do that. So the staff at the property just went above and beyond at every single chance that they got. And for that reason, the hospitality at the property gets a 5 out of 5. Which then brings us to the last parameter, which is the location of the property. And let me begin by saying that this property is located less than 5 minutes away from Central Park. Let me repeat that again. This property is located 5 minutes from Central. Not only that, you're pretty close to cafes, restaurants, museums, Times Square, anything that you wanted to see when you're visiting New York. You can either walk to those destinations or you can take the myriad subway options available to you next to the hotel. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the location of the property gets a 5 out of 5. Now, if you put those scores together, that brings us to an average score of 4.8 out of 5, and which is why I think it is very difficult to fault the Park Hyatt in New York. Now let's come to the elephant in the room. If you look at the retail rates during August for the Park Hyatt in New York, you would be paying up to $1,000, not including taxes. So how do you make the stay happen if you do not want to pay out of pocket? I definitely didn't want to pay out of pocket. This is where the Chase Ultimate Reward points come in very, very handy. I used about 160,000 points, transferred it over to Hyatt, and booked the Park Hyatt in New York for 4 nights for 40,000 points each day. Now that might seem like a lot of points, but for me, I value experiences over everything else. Plus, I get to make videos about it. And if you look at the retail price of the property, you could be paying anywhere between $4,000 to $5,000. So you're kind of trending in the region of 3 cents per point. Now, while the 3 cents per point in and of itself sounds great, even if the cent per point valuation on this property was lower, I would still make this booking because I really wanted to experience what this hotel was all about. And that's kind of the point of points and miles, pun intended, if you ask me honestly, which is that it affords you these sort of experiences that you probably wouldn't pay cash for. At least that's what it means to me. If you've stayed at the Park Hyatt in New York, let me know in the comments below what your experience was like and whether you agree or disagree with my rating. And like always, I'll see you in the next one.